The Static in the Walls, Part 1. The House That Heard Tomorrow. Allegheny Mountains, Pocahontas County, West Virginia. October 21st, 2014, 5:47 p.m. They tell you that when you buy an old house, you aren't just buying wood and stone, you're buying history. Every footstep that crossed the floorboards, every argument held behind closed doors, every night someone lay awake listening to a sound they couldn't explain. Most of those memories disappear. People move, families die, walls are painted, floorboards are replaced, new owners arrive, and eventually, a house forgets. At least, that's what Mallory Bennett believed, until she bought the house on Blackwood Ridge. Mallory stood beside her car and stared at the place she had just spent nearly every dollar she had to own. The house sat high on the eastern slope of Blackwood Ridge, deep in the Allegheny Mountains of West Virginia. The nearest paved road was 9 miles away. The nearest occupied house was almost 4 miles down the mountain. The nearest small town was 23 miles south. Cell service disappeared 6 miles before reaching the property. There were no streetlights, no traffic, no neighboring houses visible through the forest. Only a narrow gravel road twisting between steep ridges, exposed rock, and thousands of acres of trees. The house was 3 stories tall, built in 1897. Dark gray wooden siding, a steep black roof, tall, narrow windows, a wraparound porch sagging slightly on the eastern side. Behind the house, the mountain continued upward into thick red spruce and eastern hemlock. Below it, the land dropped sharply into a valley filled with oak trees, exposed rock, and a narrow creek. October had arrived early in the higher elevations. The temperature was 39 degrees. Fog gathered between the trees. The leaves had turned dark red, orange, and brown. The sun would disappear behind the western ridge in less than 20 minutes. Mallory watched her breath leave her mouth. She was 32 years old, 5 feet 6 inches tall, dark brown hair that reached just below her shoulders, gray-green eyes. A small scar crossed her left thumb from a recording studio accident when she was 24. Mallory was a sound engineer. For 10 years, she had cleaned audio for documentaries, podcasts, court recordings, and independent films. She could hear electrical interference most people never noticed. She could separate overlapping voices, identify the hum of faulty wiring, remove traffic noise from conversations recorded through walls, find whispers hidden beneath music. Mallory had spent most of her adult life listening to sounds other people ignored. That was why she bought the house. She wanted silence, real silence, the kind that didn't exist in cities, the kind you could only find miles from another person. Mallory closed the car door. The sound echoed through the valley, then disappeared. She stood completely still, listening. Wind moved through the spruce trees. A raven called somewhere below the ridge. Water moved through the distant creek. Nothing else. Mallory smiled. For the first time in months, she could hear herself think. Then, somewhere inside the house, something knocked 3 times from behind a wall. Knock, knock, knock. Mallory looked toward the house. The front door was still locked. The windows were dark. She waited. Nothing. Mallory picked up the first moving box. She walked toward the porch, and behind one of the third-floor windows, something moved away from the glass. Mallory stopped. She stared at the window. Nothing was there. She told herself it had been a curtain, a reflection, a bird passing over the roof. Anything. She unlocked the front door. The smell of old wood and dust met her immediately. The house had been empty for 14 months. The previous owner had been an 81-year-old man named Harold Vale. According to the real estate agent, Harold moved into assisted living after falling down the basement stairs. The house had remained empty since. Mallory had asked why the price was so low. The agent told her the location scared buyers away. The roof needed work. The plumbing was old. The electrical wiring was worse. Mallory didn't care. She could work remotely. She had savings. And she wanted to disappear for a while. She spent the next 3 hours unloading her car. By 9 o'clock, the temperature had dropped below freezing. Fog covered the valley. Mallory made soup on the old gas stove. She ate alone in the kitchen. The house settled around her. Pipes clicked. Floorboards creaked. Wind pressed against the windows. Normal sounds. Every building had a voice. Mallory knew that better than most. At 10:13 p.m., the landline rang. Mallory stared at it. She hadn't given anyone the number. The phone sat on the kitchen wall. Old, beige plastic. A coiled cord. She answered. Hello? Static. Hello? Nothing. Then breathing. Slow. Quiet. Mallory listened. Who is this? The breathing stopped. A man whispered, Wrong day. The line disconnected. Mallory stared at the phone. She called the operator. No connection. She tried again. Nothing. The line was dead. Mallory checked the phone cord. Everything looked normal. She went upstairs. Her bedroom was on the second floor. The third floor contained 2 empty rooms and an attic door. Mallory unpacked, read for an hour, then turned off the light. At 3:14 a.m., she woke. 3 knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Mallory opened her eyes. Darkness. She waited. Nothing. Then scratching, slow, directly behind her bed. Mallory sat up. The scratching stopped. She turned on the lamp. The wall looked normal. She pressed her ear against it. At first, nothing. Then breathing. Heavy. Wet. Desperate. Someone was inside the wall. Mallory stepped backward. The breathing continued. Then a voice. A woman. Quiet. Terrified. Please. Mallory froze. Hello? The breathing stopped. Mallory approached the wall. Can you hear me? The woman whispered. I can't turn around. Mallory felt cold. Who are you? Silence. Then, it's behind me. Mallory backed away. The lamp flickered. The voice screamed. Mallory ran from the bedroom. She spent the rest of the night downstairs. At sunrise, she inspected the wall. No openings, no crawl space, no pipes large enough to carry voices. She knocked against the plaster. Solid. Mallory told herself it had been a dream. Then she noticed scratches, 3 long marks, on the wall, beside her bed. At 9:30 a.m., Mallory drove into town. The town of Briar's Gap had a population of 617, 1 grocery store, 1 diner, 1 gas station, 1 hardware store, and a sheriff's office that shared a building with the volunteer fire department. Mallory went to the hardware store. The owner was Daniel Price, 45 years old, tall, heavy brown jacket, short black hair beginning to gray. Daniel had lived in Briar's Gap his entire life. He helped Mallory buy microphones, cables, and tools. "You're the woman who bought the Blackwood house." Mallory looked at him. "How do you know?" "Not many people move up there." "You know the house?" Daniel hesitated. "Everyone does." Mallory waited. "What does that mean?" Daniel looked toward another customer, then lowered his voice. "People don't stay long." "Why?" "They hear things." Mallory stared. "What things?" Daniel shrugged. "Different things." "You don't believe that." Daniel looked at her. "I didn't say that." Mallory told him about the knocks, the breathing, the woman. Daniel stopped smiling. "What time?" 3:14. He looked away. Mallory noticed. "You know something." Daniel shook his head. "My father worked on that house." "When?" 1987. "What happened?" Daniel looked at her. "He quit after 3 days." "Why?" "He heard his own voice coming through the walls." Mallory didn't speak. Daniel continued. "My father said the voice told him not to go home." "Did he?" "Yes." "What happened?" Daniel looked at her. "My mother died that night." Mallory felt cold. "How?" "Car accident." Silence. Daniel handed Mallory the bag. "If you hear something in that house, don't answer it." Mallory almost laughed. "That's your advice?" "Yes." "Why?" Daniel looked directly at her. "Because sometimes it answers back." Mallory returned to Blackwood Ridge. She should have left, she knew that. But fear and curiosity often feel similar, and Mallory had spent her entire life chasing sounds other people ignored. She set up 3 microphones, one in the bedroom, one in the basement, one in the 3rd-floor hallway. She connected them to a digital recorder, then she waited. Nothing happened that evening. At 10:13 p.m., the landline rang again. Mallory answered. Static. Then a voice. Her voice. "Don't go downstairs." Mallory dropped the phone. The basement door opened, slowly. Mallory stared. Darkness below. She grabbed a flashlight, then stopped. Her own voice had warned her. "Don't go downstairs." Mallory closed the door, locked it. At 3:14 a.m., every microphone activated. The recorder levels jumped. Mallory sat upstairs, listening through headphones. Breathing, scratching, crying. Then voices. Dozens. Men, women, children, overlapping. Mallory recorded everything. At 3:19 a.m., the voices stopped. Then something knocked from inside the basement, 3 times. Mallory didn't move. At sunrise, she checked the recordings. The bedroom microphone had captured breathing. The 3rd floor had captured footsteps. The basement had captured voices. Mallory loaded the audio onto her laptop. She isolated frequencies, removed background noise, separated voices. The first voice belonged to a man. "Tell Sarah I didn't mean to leave." The second was a child. "Mom can't find me." The third was a woman. "He closed the door." Then Mallory found another, a clear male voice. "October 23rd. Mallory stopped. "Tomorrow." She listened again. "October 23rd. Then, Daniel Price." Mallory called Daniel. No answer. She drove into town. The hardware store was closed. She found him at the diner. "You need to listen to this." Daniel refused. Mallory forced the headphones into his hands. He He listened. His face changed. Where did you get this? The house? He removed the headphones. Delete it. Why? Delete it. It says your name. I heard. And tomorrow's date. Daniel stood. I don't want to know. Mallory followed. Your father heard something before your mother died. Daniel stopped. Yes. What if the house warned him? Daniel turned. Then why didn't it save her? Mallory had no answer. Daniel left. That afternoon, Mallory met Eleanor Vance, 74 years old, retired librarian, thin, silver hair, blue coat. Eleanor had lived in Briar's Gap for 52 years. She approached Mallory outside the diner. You bought Blackwood Ridge. Mallory stared. Does everyone know? Small town, Eleanor smiled, then looked serious. Daniel told me you heard the walls. Mallory didn't answer. Eleanor continued. I can help. They went to the library. Eleanor showed Mallory newspaper records. Blackwood House, built in 1897 by Thomas Blackwood, a physician, widower, no children. Thomas lived there for 31 years, then disappeared. No body, no explanation. After that, the house changed owners 16 times. 3 suicides, 4 disappearances, 2 murders, several accidents. Mallory stared. Why wasn't this disclosed? Most happened decades ago. Eleanor opened another file. A photograph. Blackwood House, 1928. Mallory looked closer. A man stood at the 3rd floor window. Thomas Blackwood. What am I looking at? Eleanor turned over the photograph. A date was written. October 4th, 1928. Mallory waited. So? Thomas disappeared September 29th. Mallory looked again. The photograph had been taken 5 days after his disappearance. That could be anyone. Eleanor nodded. That's what people said. She showed Mallory another photograph. 1971. A woman at the window. The owner before her had disappeared 3 days earlier. Another. 1996. A teenage boy. Dead 2 weeks before the photograph was taken. Mallory pushed the pictures away. What is that house? Eleanor looked at her. I don't know. But I know what it does. Mallory waited. It keeps sounds. Recordings? No. Then what? Eleanor looked toward the windows. Moments. Mallory frowned. Eleanor continued. My husband went there in 1978. Why? He was repairing the roof. He heard me screaming inside the wall. But you were alive. Yes. What happened? 3 days later, I fell through the ice on Miller Lake. Mallory stared. You survived? Yes. Then the voice wasn't a ghost. Eleanor looked at her. No. It hadn't happened yet. Mallory thought about Daniel. October 23rd. Daniel Price. The house records the future. Eleanor shook her head. No. Then what? I think it hears it. That night, rain began. Heavy, cold. The mountain road became mud. At 8:40 p.m., Daniel arrived. Mallory opened the door. He was soaked. You shouldn't be here. Daniel entered. You were right. About what? The recording. What happened? Daniel looked terrified. Someone died. Mallory froze. Who? A customer. Where? My store. When? Tomorrow. Mallory stared. Daniel continued. He came into the hardware store this afternoon. Alive. He bought rope. Same voice. The recording said, "Tell Sarah I didn't mean to leave." Mallory remembered. What are you saying? Daniel looked at her. I found out his wife is named Sarah. Silence. Mallory felt sick. The voices weren't dead people. They were living people. People who were going to die. Daniel looked toward the walls. What else did you record? Mallory didn't answer. What else? She played the file. October 23rd. Daniel Price. Daniel stared. How do I die? I don't know. You recorded it. It only says your name. Then we leave. The road is flooded. Then we walk. 23 miles? If we have to. Mallory grabbed her coat. Then the landline rang. Both stared. Mallory answered. Static. Then Eleanor's voice. Don't let Daniel leave. Mallory froze. What? Don't let him leave. The line disconnected. Daniel stared. Who was it? Mallory told him. Daniel laughed. Of course. What? The house wants me here. We don't know that. We know enough. Daniel opened the door. Lightning flashed. A tree had fallen across the driveway. Daniel stared. Mallory whispered, We're trapped. At 3:14 a.m., the walls began screaming. Not whispering, screaming. Every room, every hallway, every floor. Voices everywhere. Mallory and Daniel stood in the living room. The lights flickered, then went out. Mallory turned on the recorder. Daniel shouted, Why are you recording this? Because we need to understand it. No, you need to stop listening. The screaming stopped. Silence. Then scratching, behind the living room wall. Mallory approached. Daniel grabbed her. Don't. A voice whispered, Daniel. He froze, his mother's voice. Daniel began crying. No. Daniel. He stepped closer. Mallory grabbed him. That's not her. You don't know that. She died 27 years ago. The voice continued. I waited for you. Daniel touched the wall. Mallory pulled him back. The wall cracked. A thin line appeared in the plaster. Cold air came through. Then an eye opened inside the crack. Daniel screamed. Mallory pulled him away. The crack closed. The wall became normal. Daniel stared. What was that? Mallory didn't answer. Upstairs, glass shattered. They ran. Mallory's bedroom mirror had broken, but the pieces weren't on the floor. They were standing upright. Every shard balanced vertically. Each reflection showed a different room. Mallory stared. One showed the kitchen, one the basement, one the third floor. Then Daniel saw something. Mallory. A shard showed the hardware store. Tomorrow's date was visible on a newspaper. Daniel stood behind the counter. A man entered. The customer. The one named Sarah's husband. The man carried a gun. Daniel watched. The customer raised the weapon. Mallory grabbed Daniel. Don't watch. Daniel couldn't move. The reflection showed Daniel reaching beneath the counter, pulling out his own gun. 2 shots. The image disappeared. Daniel stared. That's how I die. Mallory looked at him. No. I kill him. Not if you don't go. Daniel started laughing. The house showed us. The house has been wrong. When? Mallory couldn't answer. Daniel looked at her. Exactly. They spent the rest of the night downstairs. At sunrise, the rain stopped. The road remained blocked. Daniel stayed. Mallory called Eleanor. No answer. At noon, they walked toward the fallen tree. Then Mallory heard a car engine. Eleanor arrived from the other side. She had driven an old truck through a logging road. Mallory ran toward her. You came. Eleanor stepped out. You called me. Mallory froze. No. This morning. I didn't. Eleanor stared. You told me Daniel was dead. Silence. Daniel looked at Mallory. Mallory shook her head. I never called. Eleanor looked toward the house. Then it knows how to use the phone. Mallory felt cold. They returned inside. 3 people, 1 house. Eleanor examined the recordings. She listened for hours. At 4:20 p.m., she found something. Mallory. Mallory approached. What? There are layers. I know. No. Under the voices. Mallory listened. Static. Then something else. A low frequency. Repeating. Mallory slowed the recording. The sound changed. Words. A man's voice. Hundreds of repetitions. I can hear you listening. Mallory removed the headphones. Eleanor stared. What? Mallory played it aloud. Daniel stepped backward. The voice continued. I can hear you listening. Again, again, again. Then the recording changed. A new voice. Mallory's voice. Clear. Terrified. October 24th. Mallory froze. Tomorrow. The recording continued. If you're listening to this, I made the same mistake you did. Mallory stared at the speakers. I thought the voices belonged to dead people. They don't. I thought the house was showing us the future. It isn't. Daniel whispered. What does that mean? The recording continued. I thought the thing was trapped inside the house. Mallory's voice began crying. It isn't. The house is trapped inside it. Silence. Eleanor stood. We leave now. Daniel looked outside. How? We walk. Mallory didn't move. Her own voice continued. One more thing. Everyone froze. Don't let it know you can see tomorrow. The recording ended. Glass cracked upstairs. Mallory looked toward the ceiling. Eleanor whispered, Don't go. Mallory walked upstairs. Daniel followed. The hallway was dark. Every mirror had been covered. Mallory had covered them herself, except one. The mirror at the end of the hallway. The cloth lay on the floor. Mallory approached. Her reflection appeared. But something was wrong. In the mirror, sunlight came through the windows. Outside, the house was gone, burned to the ground. Dozens of people stood among the ruins. Mallory recognized Daniel, then Eleanor, then people she didn't know, all standing silently. watching. Then Mallory saw herself.
The Mallory in the mirror
standing
turned
among
toward
them.
the real Mallory.
The real Mallory didn't move. The reflection raised one finger to its lips. Daniel whispered, "Mallory, don't. What do you see?" Mallory stared. The reflection stepped closer. Behind the real Mallory, something scratched inside the wall. Then Mallory's voice whispered from inside the plaster, "Don't let it know you can see tomorrow." The reflection smiled, not because it was happy, because it knew Mallory had heard. A crack appeared across the mirror, then another. The reflection reached toward the glass. Mallory backed away. The mirror shattered. Every light in the house went out. From downstairs, Eleanor screamed. Mallory and Daniel ran. They found the living room empty. "Eleanor?" No answer. The front door stood open. Outside, fog covered the mountain. Mallory stepped onto the porch. "Eleanor!" A voice answered from the forest. "Mallory." "Eleanor." Daniel grabbed Mallory. "Don't! She needs help. Look!" He pointed toward Eleanor's truck. Eleanor was sitting inside, hands against the steering wheel, not moving. Mallory approached. The driver's door was locked. She looked through the window. Eleanor's eyes were open. Mallory knocked. No response. Then Eleanor slowly turned. She raised one finger, pointed toward the house. Mallory looked. Someone stood at the third-floor window. A woman. Mallory. Daniel whispered, "Who is that?" Mallory couldn't answer. The woman in the window lifted a handheld recorder, Mallory's recorder, then pressed play. The sound came through every wall in the house. Mallory's own voice, screaming. "Daniel, don't open the basement door!" Daniel froze. Behind them, from inside the house, the basement door creaked open. Daniel stared. "I didn't touch it." Mallory looked toward the darkness below. Something was walking up the stairs, slowly. One step, then another, then another. Mallory backed toward the porch. The footsteps stopped. A voice came from the basement. Daniel's voice. "Mallory!" Daniel stood beside her. The voice continued. "Don't trust me tomorrow." Mallory looked at Daniel. He looked terrified. Then the landline rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Mallory answered. Her own voice whispered, "You have 24 hours." "To do what?" Silence. Then, "To decide which one of them dies." The line disconnected. Mallory turned. Daniel stood behind her. Eleanor sat motionless in the truck. The woman who looked like Mallory remained at the third-floor window. And somewhere beneath the house, something began laughing. Not like a person, like hundreds of voices trying to laugh at the same time. Mallory looked at the recorder in her hand. The screen turned on by itself. A new audio file appeared. October 24th, 2014, 3:14 a.m. Mallory pressed play. Her own voice whispered, "Daniel is going to ask you to trust him." Static. "Eleanor is going to tell you she knows how to destroy the house." Static. "They're both lying." Mallory looked toward Daniel, then toward Eleanor. The recording continued. "And before tomorrow night, one of them will kill you." The file ended. Mallory slowly looked toward the house. Every window was filled with people. Dozens. Men, women, children, watching her. People who were still alive. People who hadn't arrived yet. People the house had already heard dying. Then every person in every window raised one finger to their lips. At the same time, Mallory's recorder activated one final time. A man's voice whispered, "Now it knows you're listening." End of part 1.